What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Forever here with another Borderlands 4 build video, and in this video we're going to be going over my Rafa Beam Team Deluxe build. That's what I'm calling it. And this build is a really interesting build that branches off of the indirect damage that Rafa does a lot of. No bugs, no exploits, no crit knife, none of that nonsense. At least from what I can tell, I don't think there's any bugs with this. Not something I intentionally went out of my way to do, by the way. But anyway, this is a build that is very good at killing bosses as well as killing mobs, and unlike other builds that actually have this like concept, and this is not like to undermine anyone's build, you don't have to swap between specializations or anything like that, augments or nothing like that. You can continue to play the build when you're mobbing and bossing, due to the fact that you can sustain your Bullet Buddy Deluxe permanently in fights, boss fights, as well as in just like mobbing and stuff, which that's actually where this build tends to fall apart. In the mobbing section, I was able to fix that, and we're going to go over how it works, how to play, and things like that. As you can see in the footage in the background, I am able to kill just short of every single boss in the game. I haven't had a boss that I've had a problem with. Obviously, this is a build that's torque focused, so you're going to build up stickies, you're going to explode them after duration, and then they're going to die. So it's not like an instantaneous, you blow them up and they kill like some other builds. But again, if you're playing around torque, you like torque weapons, this is going to be a build for you that has a ton of indirect damage. It's super comfortable, extremely defensive, very fast. It just does everything that you want from a build. So yeah, that's the build. Let's go into how to actually play it. All right, now that we got the intro out of the way, let's actually talk about how the build works and how it differs from many other builds. So the main difference between this build and many other builds is we're taking advantage of the keystone called Beam Team. And what this does is it replaces your Peacebreaker cannons with like beams that will shoot shock as well as corrosion, making it pretty good at dealing with those two elements. The actual benefit of this actually has nothing to do with the direct damage from these. The Beam Team actually doesn't function as your primary damage. It will actually kill like weaker enemies, but when it's anything meaningful like badasses or bosses, this is basically used as a way to make it so that your Bullet Buddy Deluxe stays up permanently. And yes, we are able to permanently sustain this in both bossing as well as in mobbing. So I'm gonna just talk about how to play them in both scenarios so you understand. So basically what you're gonna do if you go into a boss fight is you're gonna turn on your Bullet Buddy Deluxe instantly, and you're gonna just start loading up enemies with stickies as much as possible with your Kaya-san. Bullet Buddy Deluxe basically makes it so that when you activate it and you go into overdrive, you're able to sustain it because it doesn't consume any form of ammo whatsoever. So during the duration of this, you're able to load it up and constantly like stick things. The negative to this is, and I think this is actually a bug of the game, projectiles will eventually disappear. Like, I think you can't have unlimited projectiles because that was the idea behind this build. The idea behind this build was just to stack as many projectiles as I can and not have to worry about it because they will just kill them because they will just keep stacking. I think Borderlands 4 is programmed to remove projectiles after a certain amount, so the torque projectiles will just go away. Some of them, they will just go away. And so you actually have these dead zones of damage that you actually don't be able to do. So you can't unlimitedly stack despite this build being capable of doing it. Now that's fine and all. That doesn't really matter too much because we're just going to reload and continue to shoot. But there'll be a quick second of downtime where you don't shoot. So basically, if you're approaching a boss, you go into the fight, you will turn on your Bullet Buddy Deluxe, you'll start shooting at enemies, ideally crit points, and then the moment it actually goes down and start to reload, you activate it again, and it'll start proccing those. And typically, in very rare situations in Ultimate Vault Hunter Rank 5, most things will die during that phase and they will not live, but sometimes they'll have like 5% HP or something like that. What you could do is just continue to shoot because you'll have a second round already coming in. So by the time your first round of torques finish killing or blowing up, you already have half of another amount already in them. You will be shooting constantly, you will be safe constantly, and that's just, you know, how it's designed. Now on the other end of things, when it comes to like how you're mobbing, while this one doesn't require you to go into instanito, and this is something a lot of the other builds actually have a problem with, they have a very hard time sustaining keeping their action skill up because they have to go into instanito, and what ends up happening is your weapon doesn't actually do a lot of damage, and you're kind of reliant on this to sustain you, and it just becomes like not necessarily the greatest. What we actually do is we don't need it because a lot of people actually doesn't use Beam Team at all because they use the other cannons. And the way the Beam Team works is when the laser, like when you visually look at someone and the lasers lock on, it's instantaneous because it's a beam, unlike your other cannon types. Those require a projectile to travel, and this weapon, on the other hand, it doesn't. The beams don't. They instantly lock on and they instantly do a lot of damage. And what ends up inherently happening is, because we have like speed on our shots and we instantaneously lock onto weak points because of the beams, we actually end up having much higher uptime on keeping our action skill going. We have Inspirado, like this one right here, which will lower the duration. We're always proccing this because of our statuses, and because we have this one, which is going to reload, give us 15% back, we're actually able to fully sustain it because we don't have to worry about that travel time for the projectile to get to the enemy. And that time actually does add up, and I don't think people realize that time actually does add up when it's traveling to the enemy. Now, the other upside to this is, because we're using the Hot Slugger as our mobbing weapon, the Hot Slugger can benefit from the Bullet Buddy Deluxe without having to worry about ammo. So if you're facing off against elites and the badasses or anything, you're not fighting a boss, or if you're fighting a boss, you can actually use your Hot Slugger to do a ton of damage as well. And you'll see in some of the footage, like for example, we had to fight Val Lictor a little bit different because he doesn't have he goes invulnerable sometimes, so you can't stack up the Kyle-san as well as you could, you know. So you have to swap and do something different. You can actually pull out your Hot Slugger, and you can actually just keep shooting him with the Hot Slugger, and there's no downtime. We also stack a ton of attack speed, fire rate, and what ends up happening is we actually have a Hot Slugger that deals some pretty solid damage because it's constantly shooting. We don't have to worry about ammo, and you actually end up being a pretty strong force to reckon with from a mobbing and a bossing standpoint without really having to worry about it. That's the core concept of the build. We're going to go over the different parts, but yeah, it's a really interesting take on it, and yeah, I just want to break it down. All right, now that you guys have a better understanding of how the build works, let's go over the equipment so you can put it all together. So obviously the star of the show is going to be a Kyle-san. This is a weapon that's going to fire a ton of stickies onto an enemy. Ideally, you want to look for the torque licensed sticky magazine that comes with 4% scaling damage on the explosion. That's going to give you a lot more damage. Mine also has a pretty high fire rate, so you're looking for a high fire rate. The mag doesn't matter at all in any capacity because we have unlimited ammo, but that 4% damage is actually pretty big, so that's where you're looking for high fire rate and 4% damage so we can get as many stickies as we can. The other weapon we're going to be using is a Hot Slugger. The Hot Slugger doesn't really matter as long as it has Jacob parts and it has a blazing barrel, which it should always have. This is all you're going to be using for your mobbing and sometimes bossings. Like I said a minute ago, Val Lictor, he's a little bit weird, so you're going to have to play him a little bit different compared to the other bosses. But yeah, that's how you switch the equipment you're going to need for it. We're also going to use a mini triple bypass. This build lacks a proper enhancement, and it lacks a proper stem. Like this one, for example, we're using a tank stem, but if you have a better one that does like any form of damage increasers, that would be ideal. Even something like amp is actually pretty solid for the most part. Super good, if I'm being honest. Amp is also really good for this build, so just keep that in mind. But what you're going to do is just get a mini triple bypass and whatever you want there. For our ordnance, we're going to be using a waterfall. I like this one that has lingering payload. It spawns 4 rotating beams that deal damage, and the splat pack augment launches 3 projectiles that each spawn an elemental puddle on landing. Is absolutely absurd. I'm going to specifically show you some clips of this thing in action. This thing is absolutely insane. It's a really strong grenade, and I think people sleep on it a little bit. It's a impact grenade too, so you can just throw it at an enemy. But it's super strong, and if you can get them with this like setup, I think this is like one of the strongest setups I've seen on a grenade, because it just blows up anything with crystals. And if it's a trash mob pack, you throw this and they just all blow up instantly. It's actually insane. Really big. You can get this from the bio bulkhead, by the way. Next, we're using the Precise Instigator. Now, people say the Dancer's better. For this build, I don't really see a need for Dancer. I haven't tested it. But the reason why we want this one is because it comes with the augment called Death Hands, and what Death Hands does is it gives you increased attack speed on your cannons, and this is actually going to contribute to maintaining it, because you're not using your cannons for damage for say, you're using your cannon to sustain your action skill at all times so that you can actually do a ton of damage. So this one is really big, so just keep that in mind. So we're going to use Precise Instigator. You can get this one from Val Lictor, and this is going to be where we get the shield from. And what this does is whenever your cannon is fired at an enemy, you're going to get stacks of Instigator, and whenever you like lock off an enemy, it's going to remove it all. But while it's actually gaining stacks, it's going to give 2% gun damage which obviously is going to contribute to our damage pretty big. I don't know the max stack on this one, if I'm being honest. I don't really ever look at it, but it's just going to give you a ton of gun damage, and that actually contributes to a lot of damage over time, so it's really, really big. For our shield, we're going to be using the Super Soldier one. Again, you can get this from Valictor as well. When this is active, what happens is it's going to give you an overshield, and whenever your shields are full, you're going to get 25% fire rate, 25% MS, and then you're going to regen 1 ammo. And when you're using your Jacob's Hot Slugger, sometimes you can just double shoot, because if your shields are active, you're moving around because things are never going to hit you because you're fast, you can just double shoot a lot of times. So you get 2 pumps out of it before needing to reload, sometimes even more. And that's actually something really cool on the damage uptime for the Hot Slugger. The other thing is we're using Vagabond on this for more MS, so we're running at 45 MS whenever our shields are full. And then we have Siphon on this with a 10% chance to grant 3000 overshield. So while our beams, and this is the other synergy that I think a lot of people ignore about his beams, are when this beam is hitting enemies, it does a ton of little ticks of damage instances. And so this procs quite a bit, to the point where you're always running fast and you're always getting defense. And this is a big part of your defense. You don't really care about taking damage because this shield has a pretty fat amount of defense on it itself with 1500 shield, but you also get a ton of overshield constantly, and it actually makes you really, really defensive. So it's actually a really, really good shield. Again, you can get it from Valictor, but this is going to contribute to a lot of extra damage from not only fire rate, but from ammo sustain with your Hot Slugger, as well as just like defense and move speed. It's like insane shield. For our enhancement, we're using something with fire rate. That's the only reason we have this. If you want something better, what I would look for is the torque one that gives you, I think it's 2% damage per stack on your explosion. I think that's what it does. You can get that. There's another one that give you like raw flat 25% damage, as well as radius. You can get that one as well. But yeah, that's what I would get. And you want fire rate. Fire rate's the most important thing, because you want to stack as many as possible. Magazine don't care too much. The splash is actually okay. Splash damage is fine, but for the most part, you're looking for that. For our firmware, we're going 3 Deadeye, because we're going to get that crit hit chance grants 50% crit damage per stack, and this is going to stack up to 75% crit damage, which is pretty big, plus the flat 25% crit damage, which will be 100% crit damage, which is pretty big. We're going to crit a lot because we're aiming to crit a lot. And then we're running airstrike because we're going to get splash radius, because this is a splash focused build. It does do a lot of splash damage, and we're going to get 20% splash damage. I did test it. It did go up by 20% when I equipped this, so it does affect the projectiles when they explode from your KO Sun. So this is our firmware. Coming over to our skills now, we're going to be using 5 points in Deft Hands. I tried to use it without 5 points. It couldn't sustain without it. The difference maker in this was the 5 points in Deft Hands. So having the 10 actually was really big here. We're going to be using Sitier. This is going to give us gun damage, pretty straightforward. We're also going to be using Hirego. This is going to give us a crit hit. Whenever you crit, you're going to get action skill duration. And this is our major sustaining tool. Then, of course, we're going to be using Bullet Buddy Deluxe. We talked about this a second ago, but basically what this does is when it's active, your Peacebreaker cannons, you're going to get ammo to all your allies, which a lot of times if we're running around with our shotgun is always going to refill, and this is why we can double proc it a lot. Also, it's going to do bonus incendiary damage based on how full his magazine is, and since we always have 1 bullet in our magazine when we're mobbing, this actually helps a lot. And again, when you activate it, you're going to get unlimited ammo for the duration, and we can sustain this pretty much permanently as long as we have it equipped. Over here, we're going to grab Asymmetric Warfare. Indirect projectiles gain increased damage. If I'm not mistaken, your ricochets count for this. Your beams for sure count for this, as well as your stickies on your KO Sun counts for this. So this is a pretty big keystone. Do not skip this one. I tried without it. Damage do drop down quite significantly. We're going to get Errant Spark, because all direct projectiles deal bonus incendiary damage. Some people say this bugged. I have no clue in what way it's bugged, but it does bonus incendiary damage, so you know, gonna use it because it's good. For the second row, we're gonna get this one. This is gonna give us more damage on our fully loaded magazine. The first shots fired from a fully loaded magazine. This is gonna be 55% bonus corrosive, and this helps a ton on our Hot Slugger, so it's pretty big. We're also going to get Pain Reaction. This is going to give our ricochets off of enemies with status effects. We're always applying status effects, so we're ricocheting a ton. We're going to grab 1 value point into concentrated buildup just so we can get Inspirado. And what this does is whenever you're applying status effects, this is going to reduce the drain of your action skill. That's why we have 3 points in this. It's pretty big. And do our mod, we did get this one. I have no clue how much this is contributing to our status effects because, I mean, I just use this mod, so, you know, the mod is giving me that benefit. Now, over here on this, we're getting Barrage. This is going to give us more splash damage. We do a lot of splash damage from our indirect damage from our little Chaos Sun, so this is big. And then we're using this one as well. Someone told me that this was pretty good and you can use Dancer in place of the mod, and this could contribute to a ton of damage as well. You lose gun handling, but you get a ton of gun damage, and if you get 5 more points, you'll get 100% max gun damage. It could be better than this. The one I'm using, I'm not sure, I haven't tested it because I haven't gotten one with 5, but as far as I'm concerned, this is helping me sustain permanence on my Bullet Buddy Deluxe, so I don't really see why I care because I kill everything anyway. But you can try it if you want. And for our specialization, we don't care about our skill damage, so what we get is 10 here for the bullet train. We get 5 here so that we can get in the zone, 1 for Daredevil so that we can get now with caffeine, and then we're going to get 20 in brute for Riddle You This. And then I'm just stacking into killer for the crit damage because I think that's more important. But I mean, honestly, you could in theory remove this and just go for gun damage. Honestly, I just don't have a lot of Iridium to respect, so I already invested in this for another build, and so I'm just gonna keep it. Anyway guys, that's it for this build. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or any additions or changes you think should or could be made in the build, feel free to leave it down in the comment section. I'm gonna be actively making builds and taking requests, so feel free to leave some comments down below of what you'd like to see next. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. I do put a lot of effort into these builds, and I would love to continue to grow as a creator in the Borderlands community, so your support does actually mean a lot. So subscribe if you like the content. Thank you guys again for watching, and I'll see you in the next Borderlands 4 video very, very soon.